Hi everyone, it's Louise here. So this is the second part in our colour confidence workshop. You will have hopefully seen the first part. If you haven't, I really recommend you see that first. That part was open to all subscribers, but this section is just for members like yourself. And I have to say, first of all, thank you all so much for supporting me. As you know, I had some problems with YouTube. They had unfortunately given me duff information on how to set up the account properly, and so I've had to have it all reconfigured, and hopefully all is working now and you will be able to access this information, which the general subscribers don't. And that is one of the many ways I hope to say thank you for supporting me. So I'm very very grateful to you. And we talked in the first section about getting inspiration. I'll very briefly go over that, but I do really recommend that you listen to that first session. So I was talking about the colour wheel. I made myself a little colour wheel, which has each of the sort of intermediate colours here. And we talked about inspiration from things like fabric. So we've got, these sort of examples of things that, may jog us to sort of put colours together, even if maybe we're not using that fabric ourselves, or maybe we want to include it in our piece. Having a palette that's already sort of been decided for you is quite nice. We talked about using odd numbers of threads, so picking 3 or 5 generally is a good number to use. The bigger the piece, I would tend to probably go for 5, but I have sometimes used 3 on a larger piece. For a smaller piece, I would tend to go for 3, but it can depend. And as I've always said, nothing is really wrong. If you want to put a colour combination together yourself that's wild and wacky, then go for it. Don't feel restrained. We are slow stitchers. We don't always follow the rules, and that is great. I love that. So those are ways of getting inspiration. Also nature, as I mentioned in the last session, looking at what is out in the garden, what's together, what works together. A lot of the big name gardeners stake their reputation on putting colours together, not just plants and the right plant in the right place, but putting together really interesting combinations. I think, as I mentioned on the previous session, something like on the colour wheel, which is almost opposite, purple and orange. Purple and orange together is a wow. It's a really amazing combination, and I have seen that many times in gardens. And also using things like interior design. Also there are color wheels in your magazines, and also in craft books. And just using, I mean, that's a bit zippy, isn't it? Wow. Using books like this to get an idea of sort of color schemes that really appeal to you, and picking something that just is a jumping off point for inspiration. But there are also a number of colour rules that are used in art, and I have to admit I am not classically trained. I didn't find art at school particularly helpful. I wish I'd known I could have done textile art, because that would have been a whole different thing. So I have to have a bit of help, like we all do. And when I put out the call for how are people feeling about colour, most of you said that you would really appreciate a bit of help. This is an absolutely fantastic thing that I've bought. Daler Rowney is obviously a very well-known art brand, so you can get cheap ones like this on Amazon. This costs probably £1 or £2 more than the cheap ones. I really recommend this one. It's so good. And using this, I have understood colour in a whole different way. It is, there's a lot to it, and it can be quite complex, but it is it's a really good way of visualizing things and working out how color actually works. So I just wanted to go through some of the basics that I've learnt from this colour wheel. And there are so many elements to this, and some of them will be really familiar. So I do apologise if I'm teaching my grandmother to suck eggs, but there's some that are really quite interesting, and some of the terminology I feel has been really helpful for me to understand. So I thought I'd share all of that with you. So first of all, the main thing about the colour wheel is that, as we may all know, there are three primary colours. So a primary colour is a colour that can't be made by putting two other colours together. And those primary colours are red, yellow, and blue. So they're equally distant on the colour wheel. These are, as I say, colours that cannot be made by other things. So they are the basis of art, really, are these three colours. And, throughout art, there have been so many difficulties getting the right sort of red or the right sort of blue. And, over time, obviously now it's a lot easier. We can just pop to the art shop and, get some paints. But throughout time, they've been trying to get these perfect colours, and it's just really helpful to know, just to remind ourselves that these three colours are the main colours really on the colour wheel. Everything else comes from them. So primary colours, red, blue, yellow. Secondary colours are a mix of two of the primaries together. So these three primary colours, if you add for instance, yellow and blue together, you get green. And if you add blue and red together, you get violet. And if you add red and yellow together, you get orange. So those secondary colours are a mixture of the two primaries. And when you move on from that, as you can see, obviously between this secondary colour and the primary colour, we've got another stage on each of these sections here. So those are called tertiary. So tertiary colours are a mixture of a primary colour and a secondary colour. So a primary colour is yellow, a secondary colour is green, and the tertiary colour, the intermediate colour there, is a yellowy green. So I've got it in my little here, nice yellowy green. And when you start thinking about colour like that, it's really interesting. I've noticed in the pieces I've been making the last couple of days, I'm much more attuned to this now, which is really, really interesting. Now, carrying on from that, it can become really complex. So we're going to go through some of the basics, and I will see what you think. And if you feel you wanted any more detail, then I can obviously add more to this. I'm going to bring in my threads as well, because it's sometimes nice to see it in a different way. There's other ways of looking at colour as well, and you'll probably be quite familiar with this, but there is a split between warmer colours. Oh, actually, that's slightly warmer, and cooler colours. So that's something we've often heard about, isn't it? Particularly in in clothes and things like that. So warmer colours, they are sort of slightly more dominant usually. They come to the foreground in things, and they can be quite bright and are quite sort of, they sometimes call them aggressive, which I think is quite interesting. I think that's what they call it on the back of this one. I think they talk about that, being aggressive colours. And then you've got receding. So you've got colours that recede somewhat into the background. So these are cooler colours. So, we often think about blue as being quite a cold colour, but it's also quite relaxing, and a shade of green. As I said, I painted mine perhaps a little bit more towards this sort of colour, but I painted my I repainted my sitting room, and it was in a colour when I moved in. I never liked it, but I just didn't change it. It was in a sort of slightly yellowy, sort of colour, and I painted it this soft green, a bit more like that, and oh, it's lovely now. It's so calming and relaxing, and it just goes to show I was more towards this sort of palette, a sort of soft yellow, but a yellow. And yeah, and for me it just works so much better, and it really lightened the room up. And so that is to do with warm and cool, so that's quite interesting to know. And this is something, you know, I have used in when I've been trying to step outside of my normal colours. um, I've often called these dual colours, you know, it reminds me of emeralds and rubies, and you know, and so on. And putting together a palette that's more this side, you know, is yeah, it's really a little bit different for me, but I really enjoyed these. um and this one as well, in those sort of, you know, very much in this palette, it's almost exactly, you know, following this sort of cool side to try something different. um and On the other hand, as I showed you in the first video, there we go, nice and bright. So that's totally on that side. I never at the time actually thought of it in that way. I was just inspired by this particular bit of fabric. But this is totally, it's a bit in your face, isn't it, really? And it's, I mean, I'm wearing a red top today, so I do wear these colours, but I don't always work in them because it's not completely in my comfort zone. But I loved this. I really enjoyed working on it, and it actually got a lot of attention. Apologies, Ella's in a paper bag behind me, and she's just decided to roll about in it by the sound of it. So yeah, so you can tell, you know, the difference between these two if you put these together. You know, there's a really cool feel about this, and there's a very warm feel about that. But yeah, equally both are lovely, and I do really encourage you using colours that you're not always that confident in, because once you actually put something together, sometimes it's just, yeah, it's amazing, and it looks really really good. I'll move these out of the way for the next part. So there are other things, and there is a lot of information. I mean, a lot of this I have checked with this particular, which I do really recommend. I got it from Amazon. There's a lot of terminology which is sometimes a bit hard to unpick if you don't come from an artistic background. You know, you hear all these words like shades, tones, tints, hues. You know, what do they mean? And actually, this also does list out all of that. So you know, this has been really helpful for me as a reminder. So a hue is just a colour. So a hue is yellow or bluey green or blue violet or red. Tone is what you would call a colour mixed with grey. So on the flip side of this, you have information here about different colour combinations, and you know, also about putting things together, and how you know, adding grey to something can make it look quite different. So I will show you another example of that later. So a tone is a colour with grey added. Unfortunately, they don't have that as a cutout box here, but they do have tints and shades. So a tint is a colour with white added. So for instance, this quite bright sort of green, adding white in, you get that lovely soft, this sort of green, which is the shade of more or less of my sitting room. So terminology can make it seem really complex, but a shade is also adding black. So when you start breaking down these this terminology, it just helps you visualize it a bit more. So for instance, we'll move around to the purples. I do like purple. So violet, let's go violet. So violet with black obviously gets you a very, very dark violet, whereas adding white, which is a tint, so that's a shade, that's a tint, that is, you know, lovely soft violet there. So yeah, terminology can sort of make it a bit complex, but how eventually do we become more confident at putting these colours together? I think that's the main crux of it. How do we, how do we start to feel confident? Perhaps we've used, some of the techniques that I've talked about earlier, looking what's around you, getting inspiration, taking a photo of something if it really inspires you, colour combination. There's some painted houses in Bristol, and also in Wales when I was on holiday in the summer, and the colour combinations of the different houses next to each other are all sort of, powder pinks, greens, blues, really striking, and gives you ideas. Um, you can also use the colour wheel to put combinations together, and this one particularly, this is why I recommend this, because I know what this one's got on it, and it is really, really helpful. And if you flip over to the back, you can see a bit more of some of these colours. So it gives you ideas of what goes together. I'm sure you will have heard, tried and tested combinations. For instance, monochrome. Now, monochrome often gets called, if you wear black and white together, they call that monochrome. It's not actually monochrome. Monochrome is putting different shades of the same colour together. So monochrome could be, for instance, let's have a look here, yellow orange. Here we go. These are all one colour, but all different shades based on the tint, which is adding white, the tone, which is adding grey, and the shade, which is adding black. So this really helps visualize, putting together what we would really call a monochromatic piece. So I've got an example of that here. It's not 100% monochrome because actually I've used slight shade variations. I'll have to come out a little bit here to show you. But this is a journal that I made, and I purposely made it because I was going to use lace. I purposely made it in what you could sort of call a monochrome palette. So there's various stages of, I would say, a sort of cream to beige in here. There's slight differences in a couple of bits, but using one color, you then start using things like texture and putting in things with with a bit of a feel about them to sort of elevate it. But basically I've used more or less one colour here, and that is monochrome. So if it was all done in purple or it was all done in pink, it's quite a challenge. I will say it's a lovely challenge, and I really recommend you give it a go, because you start thinking in a different way. And we're always looking for our next projects, aren't we? We've always got a few on the go. So monochrome is something that I've had as one of our previous prompts, and it is really something I recommend giving a go, because it really makes you think about other things other than just colour. I know this is this is a workshop about colour, but yeah, it is important. So monochrome is one colour. What people were calling monochrome, so these shades of grey going around to black, that's actually called achromatic. So a meaning lack of, and chrome meaning colour. So a lack of colour, because black and white are not actually counted as colours. Black, white and grey, they are a sort of what they call it, grayscale. So a scale of grey from the very darkest through to white at the very lightest. These are not technically colours, which is not something I ever learnt at school, but I find it really fascinating. So I haven't really got another example to show you of this, but many years ago, and you will see it on the banner for our group, our Facebook group, Slow Stitching by Hand with Eleanor Grace, is I've taken a picture of an all white bookmark that I made. I absolutely loved it. I think I gave it away to someone, and probably regretted it afterwards. But it was, yeah, it was lovely working completely without colour, just working. And again, I used a bit of texture. I layered up different levels on it. I had some lovely lace, and I used a lot of French knots and yeah, all sorts of things to give it a bit of texture, because taking away colour is just as exciting really as putting together a beautiful colour palette. You can also use tried and tested combinations. So there are a number of combinations on the colour wheel that technically go together. And this is, again, art sort of related. They're well known, combinations. So if I turn, for instance, to red at the top. So the first colour combination that you may hear about is opposites. So they call it complementary. Completely opposite on the colour wheel will go together beautifully. It just does. I don't even question it now. So red and green, for instance, or if I turn it round here, you've got violet and yellow. It's a beautiful color. These are beautiful color combinations. Blue and orange, yeah, really amazing. I've got this in my garden actually. I've got some orange, we call them red hot pokers. I don't know what everyone else calls them. And I've got a blue, very low growing blue shrub, and these are in the same area, and they look amazing, absolutely amazing together. So that is complementary. So anything on the opposite side of the wheel goes together really beautifully. So as we've seen, red and green, blue and orange, lovely together, and so on. So that's a very easy win there on the colour wheel. There are other ones as well. Some of this terminology is quite complex, but there's one called analogous. So basically all this means is if it's next to it, it goes together really well. So for instance, you've already mixed these in order to get the in-between colours, the tertiary colours. But blue being one of our primary colours, if you put blue together with a bluey green like a turquoise, absolutely gorgeous. Let me pull these down to show you. Just lovely together, really, really lovely. And if you put together, just saying, violet with red violet, let's get those down. Just gorgeous. Look at those together. Absolutely lovely. So you've got that with the colour. I'll bring these here as well, just so you can see them peeking out. So you've got a very easy way of putting these together. Even if you put the ones at the these should be round in a circle, shouldn't they really? Those are next to each other. Look at that. That's quite mad, isn't it? But it's lovely. Absolutely stunning. So ones that are next to each other, analogous. That's another combination that goes really well together. And that's very easy to do. If you've got a colour wheel, you can, you've picked out a fabric and you think, I'm not quite sure what's going to go with this, but I quite fancy doing something on the cool sort of side here. So blue and blue violet together, absolutely lovely. And that goes the same for the tints as well. So if you're looking on the other side here, let's turn this around. So if you're using different tints, these will still go together. Any of these will go together beautifully. So you've got different options. So you've got complementary, the opposites. You've got analogous. You've got the ones next to each other. There's also something called split complementary. So thinking about the opposites, they go together beautifully. If you move, say, one of your fingers one way or the other from one of these, you will also get a lovely combination. And actually this orange and sort of bluey violet is much used in the gardening world. It is, you know, you put these two colours together and they pop beautifully. So if, for instance, you wanted to pair something with yellow, you didn't want to go quite for violet, then you move over to one either side. You've got the red violet or the violet coming across, and one either side here, violet and the yellowy green. These will all go together beautifully. They work really well. There's even more if you take it further apart. So you've got things called dyads, triads, and tetrads. So are these, in sort of simple terms, are the every other ones. So for instance, you've got red as a primary colour. So red and yellow we know make orange, and red and orange together. So a dyad is 2 steps away. So mixing red and orange together. Let me get this. It's just lovely, goes together beautifully. And that works all the way around the wheel. And again, if you flip it over, it works with any of the combinations. So if you were looking at the different tints, tones and shades, you know, a soft pink, which is adding white into red, with a soft orange, would look lovely. These will all, you know, these will all go together really beautifully. And if you look then at, say, a triad, so a triad is 3 equally spaced colours. Now we've got that already with our primary colours, so red, blue, yellow. These are triads. So these go really well together. But also that works as you turn it around. Any of the colours that are 3 away from each other, they work really well. So there may be rules, but actually, if you look at it, most of the rules point towards there being a lot of freedom with colour. And as I, you know, as you go on, you can get sort of further away. You can do even tetrads, which is 4 spaced out colours. So, for instance, these 4 together would work really beautifully. And all of this is also, again, it's all listed on here. So if you were looking for inspiration to mix with red, here we've got the split complementary ones. We've got the triads and the tetrads. So if I put red in as a tetrad here, it will go really well with yellowy orange, and it'll go really well with green and blue violet. So it's another way of sort of giving you a bit of variety in what you're doing. Don't forget also, you know, as I say, about using the tints and tones and shades, because you know, you may be going for a fabric that is bluey green, but it's a very, very soft turquoise, you know. So I would say this is really, really helpful if you want to feel a bit more confident about colour. And the other thing to think about, as I said, were things that don't necessarily fall completely within the you know, within the colour wheel. As I say, we are slow stitchers and we can do what we want, and we don't always follow the rules. But there are combinations that we all know and that we've used before, and I'll show you again some of these. So if you look at these in a different way, pastels. You're not necessarily picking out the colour. You have to have a pastel, you know, blue and a pastel green and a pastel yellow. You know, just putting pastel colours together is you know, soft, and they go together really well. I've got a very soft sort of peachy pink here. I've got a soft lilac, and I've got a soft green. And the colours may not come out well because the storm has come right over us now. But it's a very soft and gentle combination. The soft pink, the soft cream, and the green. Again, lovely pastels. You then might want to look at sort of mid-tones. So I've got a couple of examples here. And let me get those out. So here we've got Again, these are sort of slightly pastel-y, but it's sort of getting a little bit darker, a little bit brighter. But all these colours, you know, they're on the same sort of um, tone. They're on the same sort of tint. They've got a bit of white in them. They're not too dark. This one's slightly going more towards the sort of jewel colours, I would say, the sort of you know, those cool colours. But again, putting together, again, from originally a piece of fabric under here that was the inspiration. And again here, this bit of fabric here, I went over this fabric with something in the same colour. So this was my palette, was the soft greens, the soft purples, and a little bit of pink. And again, sort of putting together something from a bit of fabric there. So that's, again here, this is a bit of inspiration, this soft, you know, soft pink fabric here. And then, as I say, going into the jewel colours, using that cool side of the spectrums. You've got the inspiration there with those sort of colours. And, you know, focusing on that. Again, this came, I think, from this particular bit of fabric here. That was the inspiration for this piece. It didn't have a lot of purple on it, but I added purple in because I wanted something darker and a bit more dramatic. And yeah, again, it's sort of getting that inspiration from something, and from using different shades and tones and tints, you know, to get the effect that you want. So really, there's probably a lot more I could go into, but it's just to give you a little idea of how to get started, you know, in looking at colour in a maybe slightly different way. And yeah, I really recommend, you know, maybe making yourself a little colour wheel. If you, especially if you don't want to buy one, and just sort of, you know, marking the colours round. And but really, I would recommend that you do, you know, get something like this. This obviously is a good name, so it's a really good quality one. It won't fall apart, and you know, you'll be turning round and round forever, just looking at the shades and tints. One thing I found really interesting with this is it shows you what the colours are like if you add the 3 primary colours here. So adding red, adding yellow, and adding blue. And I found this quite fascinating. Maybe I'm a bit of a colour geek now, but you know, bluey green, adding red to it will get you this real violet, sort of reddy violet here. And with blue, adding red will get you a full dark violet, which we know because that is in between on the colour wheel. But some of the colours are a real surprise as to what you get. Violet adding yellow gets this really sort of, I don't know, almost ochre sort of colour. Yeah, it's just, I found this really helpful. And yeah, I hope you found this helpful. There's a lot of, I've used a lot of terminology, but there are simple combinations that go together. You can get inspiration from, you know, magazines. You can get it from homes, you know, magazines. You can get it from, you know, craft books. You know, many of them have, you know, some really inspirational, you know, colours put together and colour schemes that really appeal. And as I say, being out and about, just having a look around you, nature, you know, what, you know, colour somebody's painted their house, or something, you know, might just spark something in you. And then you've got these, you know, certain things, the opposites, so the complementary colours. You've got the colours next to each other. We know they work really well. And the colours every other one, we know that works really well. And every other 3, that works well. There's all sorts of combinations you can use. And the best thing to do is have some fun with it. And I really recommend stepping outside of your comfort zone with the colours that you really love. We all have our favourites, and I know I work a lot in the same sort of shades, but I do try to go out of it. I do try to work in slightly different colours, and I think it's about time I did something. As I put that aside earlier, I was looking at it thinking, oh, I really fancy doing something in this sort of, you know, I call these jewel colours, these cool shades. I really fancy trying something in that. So maybe that will be the next one on my agenda. So let me know. Is there anything else that you know that you are not sure about in terms of colour? Is there anything else that you want to add? Are there any colours that you're going to try now? Are there any mixtures that you're going to try that maybe you might not have thought of? Yeah, please do comment, and please do share in the group as well. I know the group won't get this video obviously unless they sign up for the membership, but to help give others inspiration is something that I really enjoy. So yeah, see how you go, and I hope this has been helpful for you, and I'll see you again soon. And in I think maybe a short few weeks, my videos will start to be dominated by Ella again. So those of you that have missed her little paws coming into the edge of the setup, you will probably get your dream to see her helping me out again, because she looks like she's gone into autumn mode now and is coming in a bit more. But thank you very much for your time and for listening to me waffling away. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you find some beautiful colour combinations that you can share with us again. Okay, take care. Bye.